November 11th, 1918, on the 11th hour of the 11th day of the 11th month. The armistice that ended World War I was signed, stopping one of humanity's most terrible wars. Today, we set aside a day to honor those who chose to set aside their lives for the land of the free and the home of the brave. This is IMSA's Veterans Day celebration. Now, I would like to welcome Caitlin McLean, RC and Specialist in the U.S. National Guard, to the stage, who will call the color guard in.
Color guard, attention. May the audience please rise. Color guard, forward march. Color guard, halt. Color guard, prepare to post the colors. Color guard, post the colors. Color guard, salute. Please join me in reciting the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Please remain standing while the combined choir performs the Star-Spangled Banner. Audience, please be seated. Color guard may be seated.
our amazing choir for that inspiring rendition. At this time, I'd like to introduce the president of IMSA's History Club, Raghav Sinha.
Thank you, Yina. I would like to start off by thanking the veterans here today for their service and the bravery they have put to put their lives on the line for our country. If there are any veterans here today, please stand as we would like to recognize your service. Throughout history, war has served an important purpose in geopolitics. Oftentimes, we see the battles and we analyze the outcomes more than the causes. We forget that each war and battle entered has a specific goal or purpose, a purpose so important that people are willing to risk their lives to ensure that this goal is reached. For our veterans, that goal is the protection of democracy and freedom. They fought to preserve not only our human rights, but the human rights of others as well. Freedom is a way of life in the U.S. We have the freedom to choose how we live our lives, no matter the outcome. Each choice we make has an effect on how we live, which in turn changes the choices we make. Without our freedoms, we would not be able to be who we truly are. Without our veterans protecting these rights and freedoms, we would not be who we truly are today. Near our main entrance, we have the UN Sustainable Development Goals listed on the walls. The reason these goals were created is to help ensure that everyone on Earth can have basic human rights, resources, and materials needed to thrive. As we, IMSA students, progress through our academic careers, I would like to ask that we take a look at ways we can make these goals a reality, promoting equity of access and opportunity across the globe. A simple thought or idea can be another step towards freedom for all. Strive to act like these veterans and work towards building a better, brighter future for all. I would now like to introduce IMSA's Wind Ensemble as they play the Armed Forces Medley while we show a video tribute of active, inactive, or retired members of the armed forces that are either staff, faculty, or family members of the IMSA community provided to us. Thank you.
Thank you for that amazing performance. Without further ado, I'd like to introduce our keynote speaker, Captain Adam Leemans. Captain Adam Leemans graduated from IMSA in 2009 and went on to attend the United States Military Academy at West Point. At West Point, Adam was named his class valedictorian and graduated with a degree in mechanical engineering. He then spent a year as a Rotary Ambassadorial Scholar in the United Kingdom, where he received his Master of Science in Energy and Sustainability. Adam was commissioned in the United States Army as an engineer officer, and during his 7 years on active duty, he served in numerous roles around the world, including leading a combat engineer platoon in Afghanistan, coordinating disaster relief efforts in Puerto Rico following Hurricanes Irma and Maria, and serving as a project engineer on several Corps of Engineers mega projects. After transitioning from active duty, Adam received his Master of Business Administration from the University of Michigan and now works for Ford Motor Company as a strategy manager evaluating the competitiveness of Ford's technology in next-generation electrical vehicles. Adam lives in Michigan with his wife Hannah and 1-year-old daughter Nora. Please join me in welcoming Captain Adam Leemans.
Well, thank you for that kind introduction. It's truly an honor to be here. It brings back so many great memories. Being in this gym, remembering playing volleyball here with some of my best friends, classmates cheering us on. Being in the band, played French horn. My roommate also played French horn. We sat side by side. I remember walking by the cafeteria. That time, Dr. Letterman joined me and some classmates for breakfast before we attended Dr. Carlson's calc-based physics class. I almost half expected to see my classmates finishing a problem set last minute when I walked past the senior U bench. It's crazy being back here. But one thing hasn't changed. It's how fast-paced life is at IMSA. And that's why I marvel at the fact that every year we put a pause on all of that. We stop what we're doing and take time to reflect on military service as a country, as a community, as a school. As I crossed that state line yesterday and saw the Land of Lincoln sign, I couldn't help but think of the Gettysburg Address. Lincoln told us that it is both proper and fitting that we should respect those who gave their lives that our nation might live. And this isn't a uniquely American phenomenon. Seeing Dr. Escalade, I think about my international relations class 14 years ago, and he made us read Thucydides and reading the Pericles funeral oration, thinking of that great leader who brought all of the Athenians together to talk about what they should do after seeing their fallen comrades. So here we are, to honor those who gave the last full measure, to honor the veterans who have borne the battle and the burden, to honor the families that have lost a son or daughter, a brother or sister, a mother or a father. This holiday season, they'll have an empty chair at the table. It is both fitting and proper that we do this. But today isn't just for veterans or for their families. Lincoln and Pericles both knew that. These ceremonies, these events, these rituals that we do, they're not for the dead, they're for the living. They're an opportunity for us to reflect on past actions, but also to look forward to the future, to a larger mission. For Pericles and the Athenians, it was to preserving a free and open society. For Lincoln, it was that our country could have a new birth of freedom, and that government of the people, by the people, for the people, shall not perish from the earth. So that brings us to today. What's our mission? Conveniently for me, all of you are already on a mission. Thousands volunteered, but you were handpicked. You're not here because you had a good SAT score or a high GPA, though those probably did help. You're here because someone saw in you the potential, the talent to take on a monumental task, to make the world a better place. See, IMSA's mission is to ignite and nurture creative, ethical, scientific minds to advance the human condition. That's quite the challenge. I know when I was 18, my first thought wasn't always, how can I make the world a better place? Honestly, I was just trying to pass my classes, get into college, and not get suspended a second time. But let me be honest, if you're in this room, you have the raw talent necessary to make a major difference in this world. You also have world-class faculty here and some of the best classmates you can find anywhere, helping to guide you along on your journey. But even with that, it's still a tough assignment. So today, on Veterans Day, I want to pass along 3 stories that I learned through military service that I think will help you on your journey. So when you attend a service academy, the first summer, before you even make it into a classroom, you have to complete the officer equivalent of basic training. At West Point, it's known as Beast Barracks, and it's a well-deserved name. Those first few days, a complete blur. All you're trying to do is not get yelled at and not mess up. But inevitably, someone will mess up and everyone's getting yelled at. It was about a week in, and they introduced a new game. The 40 cadets in my platoon, we were all standing in formation. The upperclassmen would yell out a uniform and give us a few minutes to rush to our rooms, change, and then get back out. Someone would always mess up. They'd be later, they'd have the uniform on incorrectly, and we'd repeat, and we repeated, and it seemed like it was an hour. And then honestly, something hit us. We're like, why don't we start helping each other? So instead of all just trying to help ourselves and rush back out there, we stopped and we fixed each other's uniforms. We got out there, we were all in the correct uniform, the drill stopped. Looking back, it seems obvious. Why wouldn't we be a team? Why wouldn't we help each other? But in the moment, when you're getting yelled at, when you're just running around, you don't always think about your teammates. And that's when I really woke up to a change. Because I felt like at IMSA, a lot had been about my individual performance. How did I do on a quiz or a problem set? But when you're in the military, it's not about your individual performance. It's about how you contribute to the team and how the team performs. So when I started waking up in the morning at Beast Barracks, my focus was on helping my team to succeed, to make sure we were all in the right uniform. 6 years later, I'd be waking up in Afghanistan to lead a platoon on some very dangerous combat missions. Every day we convoyed our 4 vehicles through a remote part of the country. Arguably, the most important role was the turret gunner. This was the person who manned the machine gun on top of the vehicle. From up there, they could see the enemy. They also had the vantage to see if there were any roadside bombs. It was also the most dangerous position. While the rest of us were safe behind a few inches of steel, they were exposed out there in the turret. One of my best turret gunners was Connor. He loved his country. He loved being an engineer. He loved the soldiers in our platoon. But more than that, he loved his wife and soon-to-be-born child. It was after an especially long day. We made it back after the mission, and I go into the barracks, and there's a small celebration going on. Connor was a father. I went over, congratulated him, and he starts telling me the story. And he lets it slip that he actually found out about his wife going to the hospital before the mission started. I actually kind of got mad at him, like, well, why didn't you say something? We would have taken you off the mission. We could have had you, call your wife. You could have been there. He's like, I knew that. I knew you wouldn't let me go out there if you knew my wife was in the hospital, so I didn't tell you. Why would you do that? He said, if I wasn't out there and something happened to you guys, I could never live with myself. That kind of mindset, the ability to miss the birth of your first child just because you're so focused on helping your team, pursuing that mission, that's a superpower. That's something you can't do as an individual. So when you wake up in the morning, don't think about yourself. Think about how can you serve that team? How can you make that difference? Now, if you can't tell from the first story, the military, it's all about teamwork. And my team of 20 combat engineers, we were going to be the best team as we got ready to deploy to Afghanistan. I made sure of it. We trained harder than anyone. We were in the gym longer. We were at the rifle range longer, and I made sure of it. But combat engineers, we're kind of like the Swiss Army knife of the military. We're expected to be able to build a bridge, but also blow it up. We're expected to know how to place mines, but then also deactivate them. We have to know how to do construction, but then also go around and fight as infantry. Now, we were in Kuwait doing some final exercises before we went to Afghanistan. And in one of those exercises, one of my squads failed. Failed with an F. They could not qualify, which meant we were not ready to go into the war zone. That was pretty shocking. It was honestly humbling. Luckily, the infantry platoons that we were training with were gracious enough to help train my soldiers and help us pass that exercise. They had one condition. They wanted us to start including them in some of our engineering training. So all of a sudden, we started integrating the infantry and the engineers more. And then when we finally made it to Afghanistan, I was thinking, I have the perfect team. I've got my engineers, we're supporting the infantry, we're unstoppable. But then I met fire support officers, the ones who would coordinate artillery and our mortars. I met the pilots who would be flying the helicopters, providing our air support and our medevac opportunities. I met the military intelligence analysts who were giving us background on the enemy in our area. I met our NATO allies from countries like Italy, the UK, and Denmark. Each brought a unique skill set, a different capability, and they had different perspectives on the battlefield. I realized my team needed to keep growing. Now, when we worked just as a platoon, we were extremely limited in what we could actually accomplish. But when we had engineers supporting infantry, artillery on standby, aviation overhead, analysts intercepting enemy communications, we were unstoppable. My initial mistake wasn't not being a team player. I loved my team, but my mistake was thinking that my team were the people who were closest to me, who looked the most like me. What I realized is that by growing my team, by expanding that circle and bringing in more people with different skills, different capabilities, different backgrounds, it made me and my team stronger and more capable. And then that was a team that was able to complete the mission. So my advice to you, as you go out to change the world, grow your team every chance you get. Improving the human condition is no easy task. You'll need all the help you can get, and I promise you, the more diverse your team is, the further you'll go. The final lesson I want to leave with you came from one of the longest days of my life. We went out on a mission to reoccupy a base in a remote part of Afghanistan. We were flown in by helicopter and spent the day securing the area, making sure the Taliban weren't laying in ambush. Just when I thought the day was over, the commander grabbed me and we walked the perimeter. He started pointing out areas where he wanted me to improve the fortifications, battle positions he wanted fortified. I was like, okay, well, when do you want me to start? He said, now. You know that feeling when you realize you're gonna have to pull an all-nighter to get the assignment done? Yeah, that hit me right then. I was exhausted, the soldiers were exhausted, we hadn't slept, we hadn't eaten. We didn't even have the right engineer tools. All we had is what we carried in on our backs. Not to mention, I thought, is the enemy really gonna attack tonight? What are the chances of that? But then a thought hit my mind. It was a line that was drilled into us at the military academy. Always improve your foxhole. And the idea is when you have that opportunity, use it. Because you never know when you're gonna get the chance again, and you never know when the enemy's gonna attack. So I grabbed the only tool I had available, a small entrenching tool. It's a tiny shovel that you carry on your backpack. There was a pile of leftover empty bags from the Americans that had abandoned that base a few years earlier. And my team, my engineers, we started to fill them. And when you look at that first sandbag, you think, how could this stop a bullet? How could this stop a rocket? Is this really gonna make a difference? But it's not one sandbag, it's 20, it's 40, because your team's there, the engineers are there helping fill them. And then the infantry saw us filling and they all came over and filled in a bag or two. And all of a sudden our few dozen became a few hundred, and we could actually start improving some of those fortifications. And even though we were exhausted, even though we were tired, we kept pushing on and working. Because we were thinking not about ourselves, but about our brothers and sisters in arms that would be a little bit safer. We were thinking about the mission and how we could make this corner of Afghanistan a little bit better. We were thinking about America and the country that we represented. So if you want to make a difference in the world, don't wait for tomorrow. Start filling sandbags today. As you live your lives, as you advance the human condition, as you make a positive difference in the world, there will be tough days. Days that make you wonder why you're trying to cure an incurable disease, build a renewable energy system that may never get built, or trying to help a community that's been marginalized for far too long. It's on those days that it's critical that you don't think about yourself and you think about the larger purpose, that you grow your team. And it's on those days especially that you need to pick up your shovel and start filling sandbags. So today, on Veterans Day, honor those who carried the burden of battle. Honor them by using the freedom they brought to move towards that final objective, your ultimate mission, advancing the human condition. I want to thank Dr. Glazier for the opportunity to speak today. I want to thank all the faculty who have invested countless hours into growing generations of Titans that are around the world having an impact. Finally, I want to thank all of you, the students who are carrying on the IMSA legacy and tradition. Never stop being curious, and never stop trying to improve the world. Thank you.
Thank you, Captain Leemans, for being here today and your inspirational speech and your stories. I really loved hearing those reflections. My brother also is a veteran. He served in the Army. He used to jump out of airplanes. And I can attest in my own family that he has become a much better human being as a result of his service. Students, I hope you feel inspired by Captain Leemans' stories. We're certainly grateful for not just his service to our country, but being an IMSA student, being able to relate to your experience, his duty, and your duty as well. I'd like to echo his advice about starting to fill your sandbags today. Don't wait or put off preparing to be problem solvers of the future who can change the world through your life's work. We live in the most challenging of times, as you know, the COVID pandemic, climate emergency, international conflicts, hunger, and racial injustice are just a few of the matters currently testing humankind, things that you think about and important aspects of your life today and in your future. Take an SIR, engage in entrepreneurship activities like Power Pitch, do community service, and a deep dive into coursework that develops and nurtures you to fulfill the dreams of advancing our human condition, just like Captain Leemans was describing. I'd like to thank our hosts, Yina and Raghav, our color guard students, Brent and Kale, as well as our RC, Katie McLean. I'd also like to ask Katie to come back up to the stage and call for our color guards to recess. The program will conclude after the color guard recesses.
Color guard attention. May the audience please rise. Color guard, retire the colors. Color guard, return to ranks. Color guard, forward march. Color guard, halt. Color guard dismissed, audience dismissed.